Think about stumbling onto a dead elephant in the wild. 10,000 pounds of meat just sitting there. Enough protein to feed an entire tribe for weeks, maybe longer. If you lived 50,000 years ago, that elephant wasn't tragic. It was a miracle. Your ancestors would have cut into it immediately, butchered it on the spot, feasted for days. But right now, today, somewhere on this planet, there's a living, breathing elephant standing in a field. And almost nobody on Earth would consider eating it. Not because the meat is dangerous, not because it's illegal everywhere, not even really because it's rare. Something else changed. Something buried in how humans and elephants have related to each other for thousands of years. And by the end of this video, you'll realize the real reason has almost nothing to do with the animal itself. It has to do with a line inside your own mind, one you didn't know you'd drawn. Let's start with the ancient part of the story. Humans have been eating elephants and their ancient relatives for a staggeringly long time. Archaeologists have found cut marks on elephant and mammoth bones dating back over 1 million years. Not thousands, millions. Early humans weren't just hunting these animals occasionally. In some regions, they were a critical food source. Here's what's fascinating. A single elephant kill wasn't just a meal. It was an event. Imagine you're standing over a fallen elephant tens of thousands of years ago. You're not thinking about tomorrow's hunt. You're thinking about the next several weeks. One animal carrying enough meat and fat to sustain dozens of people, far longer than any smaller catch ever could. Early human groups didn't just eat elephants. Some built their entire survival strategy around finding them. So if this relationship goes back over 1 million years, what changed? Here's where it gets interesting. It's not that humans suddenly forgot how to hunt elephants. It's that almost every other major food animal on Earth went through something elephants never did: domestication. Cows, pigs, sheep, goats. All of them were slowly bred, generation after generation, into predictable, farmable animals. Elephants never made that transition, and there's a brutal biological reason why. A cow can be pregnant for about 9 months and reach breeding age within a couple of years. An elephant is pregnant for almost 2 full years, the longest gestation period of any land animal on Earth. And a female elephant might not have her first calf until she's somewhere around her early teenage years. Which means you can't farm elephants the way you farm cattle. You can't scale it. You can't turn it into a stable food source. Every elephant eaten has to come from a wild population, one that reproduces painfully slowly. Hunt too many, and there's no recovering the number lost. Not in your lifetime. Maybe not in your grandchildren's lifetime either. So while other species became livestock, elephants stayed exactly what they'd always been: wild, rare, impossible to mass produce. But that's only half the story, because something else was happening at the same time. Something more emotional than biological. Humans and elephants weren't just hunter and prey anymore. In many parts of the world, they became neighbors. Sometimes something closer to family. In parts of Asia, elephants became working animals, moving logs, carrying loads, living alongside human families for decades, sometimes even generations, forming individual relationships with specific people. You don't build a taboo around eating an animal you've never met. You build one around an animal you've watched grow up. One that's carried your children, one that remembers your face. Researchers studying the history of human-elephant relationships describe something they call the humanization of elephants. The more closely humans lived alongside them, the more elephant killing began to resemble something entirely different from ordinary hunting. In some cultures, when an elephant was killed, communities observed a mourning period, 7 days, the exact same length of time given to mourning a member of the tribe. Not a strange animal from the wild. A death, treated with the same weight as losing one of their own. So what killed the appetite entirely? Here's where it gets almost unbelievable. It wasn't just cultural closeness. Elephants themselves gave humans very good reasons to feel that closeness. Elephants are widely recognized as one of the most cognitively and emotionally complex animals on the planet. They pass the mirror test, a famous benchmark scientists use to measure self-awareness. An elephant, shown a mark on its own body only visible in a mirror, will reach up and touch that exact spot. Very few species pass that test. Elephants are one of them. They live in tight matriarchal families, led by an elder female who holds decades of memory about migration routes, danger, and survival. And here's the detail that changes everything for a lot of people. Elephants grieve. They've been observed returning to the bones of dead family members again and again, gently touching the skull and tusks with their trunks, standing quietly beside the remains for long stretches of time. This isn't folklore. It's been documented repeatedly by researchers studying wild elephant populations. Try holding that image in your mind. An animal capable of recognizing itself in a mirror. An animal that mourns its dead. Now, picture eating it the same way you'd eat a chicken sandwich. For most people today, something in that picture doesn't sit right. But here's the twist. None of this makes elephant meat unsafe or biologically different from any other meat. Nutritionally, it's meat, protein, fat, iron, the same building blocks as beef or pork, which means the barrier isn't really about the animal's body. It's about what humans have decided the animal means. So let's bring this back to right now, to the world you're actually living in. Elephant meat hasn't completely vanished. In parts of Central Africa, in countries like Cameroon and the Republic of Congo, elephant meat still appears in local bushmeat markets. But here's the uncomfortable part. Most of that meat isn't the main goal of the hunt anymore. It's a byproduct. Poachers are after the ivory. Elephant tusks sell for staggering amounts of money on illegal markets. The meat, in many cases, is what's left over after the tusks are removed. Sometimes sold quietly, sometimes simply left to rot in the bush. Think about that for a second. An animal capable of grief, self-recognition, and decades-long memory, killed primarily for 2 curved pieces of ivory, with tens of thousands of pounds of meat treated as an afterthought. Both African and Asian elephant populations are now listed as vulnerable or endangered. In most countries on Earth, killing or trading elephants and their parts is illegal. International agreements exist specifically to restrict the trade in both ivory and meat. So today, the equation has almost completely flipped. Once, an elephant meant survival for your ancestors. Now, an elephant killed for meat is treated as a tragedy, a crime, a loss for an entire species already teetering on the edge. Which brings us to something even stranger. You do this exact same thing, constantly, without ever noticing. Think about the animals you eat without a second thought. Chickens, pigs, cows. Now think about the animals you almost certainly wouldn't eat, even if someone told you it was perfectly legal and completely safe. A dog, a dolphin, a chimpanzee. What's actually different between those two lists? It's not nutrition, it's not safety. Pigs, in fact, are widely considered to be at least as intelligent as dogs. The real difference is distance. The animals on your never list are the ones you've let yourself get close to. The ones you've watched behave in ways that feel recognizable, loyal, emotional, aware. The animals on your dinner plate are usually the ones you've never had the chance to know as individuals. You didn't choose this line consciously. It was drawn for you, slowly, by culture, by exposure, by which animals happen to end up in your home instead of on your farm. Elephants crossed that same line, just on a species-wide scale, played out over thousands of years of shared history. The more humans lived alongside them, worked with them, watched them grieve, the less possible it became to see them as food. So here's the real question underneath all of this. If distance is really what decides what ends up on your plate, how fixed is that line, really? Every single animal you currently eat without a second thought is an animal you've simply never been allowed to get close enough to, never watched raise its young, never seen mourn its dead, never given the chance to prove, the way an elephant has, that there's someone home behind those eyes. Somewhere back in deep prehistory, your ancestors ate elephants without hesitation, because to them it was simply food. An enormous, life-saving windfall. Then, slowly, over thousands of years, something changed. Not the elephant's biology, not its nutritional value, just how well humans got to know it. The line between food and family was never really about the animal at all. It was always about how close we let ourselves get. And somewhere on your plate tonight, there's almost certainly an animal you never gave the chance to cross that line.